July 1st, it's a little extra special this year. Yes, it is Canada's 159th birthday, but it's also Deadline Day for Canada Trade and Energy. Two of those things coming up on July 1st. One is the deadline for Canada, the U.S. and Mexico to either formally extend CUSMA for 16 years or review the deal every single year, either until it expires in 2036 or until a deal is reached to extend it. July 1st is also the deadline for Alberta to submit a pipeline proposal to the Major Projects Office. More on that in a moment. Prime Minister Mark Carney will be here in Ottawa on Canada Day to take in the festivities before he flies out to Edmonton that afternoon. And according to the Toronto Star, Carney will deliver a speech in Edmonton about national unity, just as Albertans consider whether or not to stick with this country. Time now for the Power Panel. Cameron Ahmad was head of communications to former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Brad Lavigne is former national campaign director for the NDP. And here with me in studio, Kate Harrison is a conservative political analyst. Kate, I don't want to leave people waiting, so we will just say, if you know where to look on the Alberta provincial government website right now, you can see a note about an embargoed event tomorrow. In this case, it's with Indigenous stakeholders, right, where the Indigenous Relations Minister is going to speak about Alberta's proposal for an oil pipeline from Alberta to the west coast of Canada. And it also notes that the formal public announcement, will be made at 2:30 p.m. Alberta time, so 12:30 p.m. Alberta time, 2:30
for us.
So it's happening. Some kind of announcement. Talk to me a little bit about the timing of hearing some sort of proposal, we assume, from the government of Alberta, and then Mark Carney being out there with folks in Edmonton on Canada Day, making this pitch for the country to stick together.
Yeah, I mean, the timing will force the question about whether or not this is something the government may consider to genuinely be in the national interest. Obviously, there won't be a ton of time to review detail between the 30th and that speech happening, Catherine. I do think that at the 30,000-foot level, it's really important that the Prime Minister communicate, if not just on this project, but when he's in Alberta on Canada Day, talking about what can tangibly be done between now and October when they face their referendum, to ensure that Alberta is being heard and feeling heard, not just through speeches, but what is the government willing to do to help recognize the sentiment that exists on the ground right now. So things I'll point to. Will the government commit to removing the industrial carbon price? Will the government commit to reviewing representation in the Senate, for example, to better reflect the population growth in Alberta and the number of the people that are out there? So it's not just about a pipeline. And I do think that it's great that the Prime Minister is out there. He needs to be the one leading this. It is his number one job as Prime Minister, is to keep this country together. But it can't be Davos. It can't just be speechified. It has to be coming with tangible actions that the government is going to take to demonstrate to Albertans that they are being heard in a real way.
Cameron, I wonder what you make of Kate's argument there, that there needs to be something above and beyond a pipeline. I mean, she points to one of the things is industrial price on carbon. Of course, there's been considerable discussion between the federal government and the Alberta government on issues involved with environmental regulation. But should the Prime Minister have something else in his back pocket for this July 1st speech?
It's a good question, and the timing is, of course, a big moment for him with Alberta making its announcement tomorrow. And of course, as you mentioned, the CUSMA negotiations. I think, though, it might not be the right occasion on Canada Day during a big national speech for him to point to specific policy proposals. I do think, though, as Kate mentioned, from 30,000 feet up, this is a strong signal that he is delivering on two fronts, I think, for Albertans. One, that he is going to Alberta and not asking Albertans to come to Ottawa. He is saying, you are part of Canada's future. You are part of this project. You are core to what we are building as a country and to my project as Prime Minister. And the second thing I think he's trying to do is reframe the discussion about what it means to be Canadian through economic growth, not just through the symbols and the values that we all hold dear, but through getting big projects built, making progress on the world stage by being a stronger player with bigger trading markets, not being so dependent on the United States as we've always been, and doing so from Alberta sends a clear signal that Albertans are part of that future. So I do think it's important for him to be there. I think it's the right place for him to be, but he's got a lot to balance and not a lot of time to do it by reviewing what Alberta's going to say tomorrow.
Brad, I'm still very interested in how the Prime Minister makes his case, has been making his case and will continue to make his case for the country to stay together. On the one hand, we've heard the argument from him about comparisons to Brexit, basically like bad idea, bad things will happen, bad. On the other hand, he's made the we are better together, right? I recall that news conference he held in the Library of Parliament where things were under renovation. He said, this country is under renovation. Look at the things we can get done together. Does it have to be all hope and aspirational on July 1st? Like, is that where he needs to be taking this conversation, or can you also sort of warn against?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's two arguments that can be made. One is the case for Canada, and the second one is the threat of voting in favor of triggering an independence referendum. I think he's got to be careful, though, because, so if you look at the arc of the campaign, it's the dead of summer. I don't know how engaged a lot of the Albertans are. I know that some of the campaigns are just getting up and running now. But clearly, after Labor Day, that's when I think things are going to get hot and heavy. For him on Canada Day to start weighing in on specific policies, whether or not he's got time to review tomorrow's announcement, I doubt he will, and I don't think he should. I think there's a danger when you start talking about specifics. That is, vote for Canada, and we'll build you a pipeline. Vote for Canada, and we'll do things on things like judges or immigration or any policies. If you start ratcheting up the negotiation, I think that that's a problem, because those that want to leave, the separatist minority, will only keep asking for more and keep turning up the volume in terms of the demands. And all of a sudden, this whole referendum becomes a negotiation as to what the path forward is for Alberta in a Canada. So I think there's a lot of danger there. I think it's more tonal. I think it's more symbolic that he is going to be in Ottawa, but then he's going to go directly to Alberta to show the priority that he is placing on it. And I think that he's also, can make the case that he's been doing a lot. He's not just starting on Canada Day. The Major Projects Office is obviously based in Calgary. Albertans are going to be clear personnel in that office. So, already he's done so much to turn the page of the Trudeau policy era that I think all he has to do is merely talk about aspirations and how good a country Canada is, as well as the threat that's coming from the United States.
Kate, one thing I wonder is, we heard the Prime Minister last week talk about the potential for a pipeline as one of these reasons that the country, cooperative federalism, we can work together. In doing that, in citing that example, has he made it politically very difficult for himself to say anything but this pipeline is going ahead?
I think so, but there are conditions for a reason, and we know that he will have to balance caucus criticism and discontent, as he already has had to do with the steps that they have taken to get a pipeline to help advance some of those pipeline proposals. So I think he's making it difficult, but he is, there are a number of conditions there that need to be met. I do think that if it's not the time for specifics soon, I take the point, Canada Day is a moment where we're celebrating our national pride and identity. But we're at this point because we have ignored for a long time a lot of what Alberta has been requesting of Ottawa. And so if we're 4 months out from now, not dissimilar from CUSMA, the clock is ticking, when is the time to talk about specifics? Because I think Ottawa may not be engaged in this debate in the sleepy summer months. Albertans are very engaged in this debate, and I don't know that the case for Canada, while a strong one I certainly support, I don't know that is going to be quite enough for the Prime Minister to go to Edmonton and talk up how great Canada is without some type of commitment to continue conversation and negotiation on more of those tangibles. If it's not July 1st, then when is it going to be?
Cameron, I do want to ask you that question as well about how the Prime Minister handles what Alberta announces tomorrow. It's very interesting because, of course, the next deadline we'll look at is October 1st. That's right before the Alberta referendum deadline. Is there a sort of momentum around this project that is very hard for the federal government to resist, whatever people on the environmental side and some in caucus may say, if there's a sense that the stakes here could be national unity?
Well, yeah, I mean, the stakes are national unity, not just on the question of this announcement tomorrow, but more broadly leading into the fall. And I think Brad makes a good point that there's a lot at stake here politically with the referendum conversations going on. So I think what the Prime Minister is going to try and do is be very strategic in how he responds to this. And that's the right way for him to respond. It's not to rush to a response to make something fit into a Canada Day speech. Maybe he will. Maybe there have been discussions behind the scenes that bring him to a place where he's able to do that. But I think the much bigger focus and priority for him is going to be to deliver that signal to Albertans, which he's been doing, by the way. It's not like he's just showing up for the first time on Canada Day and saying, hey, by the way, Alberta, you're part of this project. He has made overtures to Premier Smith. He has his ministers and his team. They have been working very closely on major projects, on investments in Alberta, on pipeline proposals. And this is part of an ongoing reset that he's trying to do. And I think it's been bearing some fruit so far. He's been showing up for Alberta, and he's been including Alberta much more deliberately in the bigger conversation about where Canada is headed and what our future looks like. And he's made energy, critical minerals, natural resources, and exporting to a wider variety of markets than the United States, a huge central core tenet of his economic philosophy. And he's put Alberta at the core of that philosophy, and that's what he's reinforcing tomorrow. So I would look at it that way, as a big, broad signal that he's trying to deliver to people in the reframing of what Canada's economic future looks like.
Brad, I want to just get you in here very quickly. I'm particularly interested in what you think he has to say on trade, but if there is an energy thought that you can't resist giving us, you can put that in as well.
Look, Catherine, the Prime Minister's at 55% in the polls in Alberta. I think he's got some runway here. I'm sure there's back channeling. It won't be a surprise what the Alberta government announced tomorrow. As you say, I can't imagine that there hasn't been back channeling, commenting, on what they're thinking. We'll see. The Tuesday panel will get to chew on the results results of that. But in terms of how Albertans are viewing the Prime Minister, that's a pretty significant level of popularity for a Liberal in the province of Alberta. So I think that he's got quite a bit of runway, on Canada Day and as the chief spokesperson in the referendum.